So ecological roles of three of these organisms. Let's go ahead and start with the bear here. So the bear, you can see, is the top predator. It eats these other animals, like especially the deer, and controls population. So if too many deer show up, then they'll eat all the little baby trees and other shrubs, and it's going to make the forest not so healthy. So we need those bears, even though they're kind of scary because they're big. This marmot right here eats grass and then poops all over, and that helps to fertilize the forest. So spreading those nutrients all over the place so lots of different plants can grow. Very important role. Also, spreading seeds, so it's going to eat some fruit, so spreading seeds around for plants, that's an important thing. The mushroom is a decomposer that helps to recycle nutrients. Remember, we only have so many nutrients on Earth, so we need our decomposers to recycle for us. Recycle nutrients, they can go back into the grass, go back into the food chain. And that's pretty good. Insect helps to pollinate, plants, flies into flowers, pollinates. And birds can perform that same function of pollination and also seed dispersal. Essentially, all these organisms work together to maintain a healthy ecosystem. And abiotic and biotic, so we can see all the living things. That's pretty easy, but we don't really think about the abiotic as much. And by that we mean the water, the air, and the rocks. And to some extent the soil. Remember, the soil is one half living. If you pick up a regular clod of dirt, imagine I have dirt in my hand. Half of that dirt is decomposed rock, broken down rock. The other half is bacteria, worms, fungi, spores, all sorts of things. So let's look at some of these organisms. So the egret eats the fish, and that'll, poop out nutrients all over forest. This is sorry, it's hot. Especially important, we look at salmon in the Northwest. So salmon had been blocked from moving up a lot of the river systems on the Columbia River by hydroelectric dams. And by blocking the salmon, you blocked out this nutrient flow, so animals couldn't get those nutrients up in the mountains and couldn't spread, and the mountains became nutrient poor. So the trees didn't grow as well. They're weaker, more susceptible to fire. So we need those fish. We need everything. People say, 100 years ago, people didn't think about the fish being so integral to the ecosystem. If people don't catch the fish, they can go somewhere else and catch them. But this whole forest, relies on the fish. We see the turtle, eating plants and then creating, poop, which then creates more nutrients in the water, which then feed the plants in a loop. The fish eats, sorry about that, fish eats insect larvae, and by eating the larvae helps to transfer nutrients around the ecosystem. Fish goes and poops other places. We got the deer eating leaves, grass, and then spreading nutrients and spreading, sorry, handwriting's terrible. Spreading nutrients and seeds, because it's going to poop out seeds all over the place. So maybe add one on your own there. So abiotic factors. Let's take my favorite. I'm an Aquarius, so I'm supposed to be all about the water. So the water provides basis for cells. If we look at cells of all living things, mostly water, and that provides a place where biochemical reactions can occur. Water is great because a lot of things can dissolve in it, and then you can get complex interactions between molecules. You wouldn't have that without water. Oh, sunlight. Sunlight is abiotic and provides energy for plants. Okay, and then the energy then goes to animals, and then goes to any kind of decomposer. I'm not writing behind my face here. I'm not sure if that's going to work. Then let's say the rock we see. So the rocks turn into soil, and that's a substrate, place where plants can grow. So non-living things are essential for life. It's kind of counterintuitive, but especially rock. Remember, this earth is made out of rock and then broke down into soil, and that really provided the basis for us humans. You'd still have other life forms in the ocean. All aquatic life, marine life would be here without the rock, in the water. But without the rocks, there'd be no humans. So think a rock next time you're around one. Autotrophs, so photosynthesizers. I want you to remember LON. It stands for light, air, water, and nutrients. Okay, my dog, Jackson, stop. Jackson, he's licking himself. He doesn't have his medicine on board. Chill, Jackson. Good dog. There he is. Where are you at, Jackson? Good doggy. Where is he? Oh, yeah. Hey, Jackson. Hey, puppy. Good dog. That's the pups. Oh, where is it? Oh, hey, dog. Oh, there he is. There's Jackson. Hey, dog. Okay, good puppy. No snacks right now, though. I'll get you up after this video. Get something for you. Oh, man. That's really good. Whew. Okay. The supply of these nutrients on Earth is limited. Sorry, I'm about ready to mess up my slide here. Hold on. So it's limited. So nutrients, we only have so much. We gotta recycle them. So of carbon, we need to recycle carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus. Potassium is important, K. And about the water cycle, very key. And decomposers like flies are essential. We gotta have decomposition. We gotta have that recycling. So think of fly. I don't like flies, but they're essential. So why do we need maggots to recycle? Jackson, no, don't do that, doggy. Don't lick yourself like that. Good dog. So that looks nasty and disgusting to most people, but we need those maggots to recycle. Jeez, are you all right? All right, so producers sustain consumers. So producers make energy, usually glucose, some form of glucose, starch, which then the consumers eat. And one thing the consumers give out is CO2, which the producers need. Sorry, that should go to here, producers, because that's my thing. And then remember, producers make oxygen, which then the consumers need. So it's a great give and take. We give producers CO2, they give us oxygen, and the producers do need oxygen also. That's kind of, plants need CO2 and oxygen. So make sure oxygen goes into producers and the CO2. And also consumers help, like I mentioned a bunch of times, they poop, and that helps provide nutrients for the producers again. Okay. One thing that needs to be recycled successfully. Well, we need to recycle water in the water cycle. We need carbon. We need phosphorus. Oops. And we need nitrogen. And others. Potassium we could put in there. So a tapeworm. It's a very common, not a common parasite, commonly known parasite, but it definitely needs to get its energy by eating. So that's a consumer, heterotroph, okay, and a paramecium is also a heterotroph consumer. Not autotroph, they don't eat dead stuff. They'll eat living things, and they bring stuff into their bodies. If we look at the shark, that's definitely a consumer. This pitcher plant, this fly might go in there, just tempted. This is a producer, even though it's eating the fly, it's mainly a producer. Here we have, can't remember the name of these things. It's a producer. One way I can tell is because, can't remember the name. It's a real common algae that a lot of research is used as a research model organism. But we see all this green, so it photosynthesizes. Like this one. And this dung beetle back here, that is detritivore. Because it's eating dead stuff. If you're eating dead stuff, it's a detritivore. We didn't have any saprotrophs there. I'm sorry, but like bacteria or fungus would be a saprotroph. So if we want to show up an aquatic mesocosm, we want to put it in a 2-liter bottle. Oops, sorry. And then seal it up. We want to add water. We want to have air that has CO2 plus oxygen. We would want producers that would take in CO2 to make oxygen, and we would want consumers that could make the oxygen. Make the CO2, take the oxygen, and we want decomposers in order to keep that cycle. So those are the basic things you would want in your mesocosm. Foundation on water. Maybe a rock in there you would put. This is interesting. This is called a Winogradsky column. And if you put a bunch of muck, like mud from riverbed or something, put it in a jar, seal it up, you get all these different bacteria starting, growing. And you get all these cool colors, and you get them because as you go down this way, you have less oxygen. And these are all stratified based on how much oxygen they need. Yeah, you see here, and how much sunlight. So the sun, like the cyanobacteria, is going to be up top, and these sulfate reducing are going to be at the bottom in a whole bunch of different colors. Beautiful. Look at these. So we'll see. I haven't done this in a couple of years. It's kind of nasty. But yeah, we'll be practicing chi-squared tests soon. But here's basically how it works. Say we want to see if there's a relationship between where dandelions grow, between shade and sun. We'll see if they prefer growing in the shade or sun. Okay, hey, do the dandelions prefer the shade or the sun? So what we do is randomly test, say 20, maybe 10, maybe 30, whatever we have time for. Test 20 in the sun and then 20 in the shade. And we would see yes if there's a dandelion, or 0 if there's not. Either yes or no, dandelion is there. Something you need to know about is the null hypothesis, and that just means there's no relationship. So we start out as scientists saying, oh, I don't think there's a relationship. We got to go from the standpoint, we don't think there's a connection. We don't want to be driving the connection. We want to be just gathering evidence to see if there's a connection. But we go in, assuming there's no relationship, and that's the null hypothesis. Degrees of freedom is kind of gets confusing, but basically it's however many possible outcomes you have, which is 2, either yes or no on dandelion, and then minus 1. So the degree of freedom is 1. Critical value, and that comes from a table. You don't really got to worry about that. We always go at the 95% certainty. So you're always going to go with 3.84 for your value to compare. So we throw it in a matrix base, do some calculations, and we calculate a chi-square value of 2.78. Since it is less than our critical value, which is 3.84, we say it's not important or it's not significant. And we therefore accept the null hypothesis that there is no relationship between the sun and the presence of dandelions. No relationship. Now, if it was greater than 3.84, we say yes, the sun, if we see the sun, we either see more dandelions or less. It doesn't really say what the relationship is, either positive or negative, but there is a relationship. And we look for significance in chi-square, but also others. But if it's greater, and that's what I just kind of explained, if the chi-square value is greater than the critical value, which is the 3.84, then there is a relationship. It's significant. In statistics, you hear a lot about significant. Other tests more commonly we'll run on our data are t-test and ANOVA, and that's when we're looking at the p-value. P-value, and you'll get used to that very quickly. Believe me. Excuse me. When you put in, we'll use Google Sheets for this. Put it into a program, and it'll give us a p-value. If it's less than 0.05, then it has a meaningful effect. It's significant. Meaningful effect on our dependent variable, I think is that word I'm looking for that. So it is kind of confusing because before our value, we're looking if it's greater than this, it's important, it's meaningful. Here, for t-test and ANOVA, we're looking, less than this critical value, which is always 0.05. That makes it significant. So it's confusing, but we will practice that.